Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to be working more on the Halloween doll, and this is going to be part 2 of the Halloween doll series. And we're going to go ahead and start working a little bit more in detail on the doll and trying to get some of that going. And if you want to follow along with traditional supplies such as acrylics and canvas, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the things that I use when I'm traditionally painting. So here I wanted to start working a little bit on her clothes, and like I said in the previous video, she didn't come with these clothes. I actually bought that outfit for her off of babeside.com where I got her. And the shoes are actually from temu.com. And the little doll is from temu.com, and the hat for him, the little pumpkin doll. So here I'm just kind of working on the Halloween shoes. They're little fuzzy kind of booties or whatever, and then they have little Halloween pumpkins on them, which I thought was cute and would accent her little Halloween costume and things like that. So here I'm working a little bit more on the shadows under her. She'll be sitting on the porch, and so it'll be dark where she's sitting. You want a little bit of a darker brown and a purple color. And then I'm working on the pumpkin boy. I guess you'd call him a pumpkin boy, pumpkin doll. Anyway, I'm working on him and trying to get a kind of an orange color on him. And you would use probably cadmium orange if you're following along traditionally, with maybe a touch of yellow ochre in it. And if you want him to look a little bit more reddish orange, you'd throw in some cadmium red light. And then I wanted to work on his hat, and you can use a burnt umber color or burnt sienna and throw in some yellow ochre with it to give that color of his hat. And then I'm trying to do her hair, and I want a little bit of a yellow ochre color for her hair. And so you can also add some burnt umber for the darker parts of her hair, and her hair is curly. I tried to brush it out and leave the curls where you can see some of them. So I'm adding several different colors of brown. And I'm using the filbert brush. An Infinite Painter is one of the main brushes that I like to use. You can also use the old oils brush or the gouache brush a little bit. It tends to be not as refined of a look, so I like to use the filbert one the most, and just kind of put different colors of brown in there in the hair, and then we'll kind of blend them in a minute. And if you're following along traditionally, you want to blend them in as soon as you put them down on the canvas, because you're using acrylic, and acrylic dries fast. Now, if you're using oils, that's a whole other story. It doesn't dry fast, so you can go back and blend things. I don't like oils because they take too long to dry. I'm kind of allergic to them, and I want things to dry fast. I've just learned how to paint with acrylic, and I just prefer it. Although if I were using oils, I would use water miscible oils. I don't like the turpentine, the solvents that you have to use to mix with it, linseed oil, all that stuff. I would just, it's too messy to clean up, and so I just like to use acrylic, or like I said, if I was going to use oils, I would get the water miscible oils. And if you want something that's kind of like oil, but it's still acrylic, they do have longer drying acrylics now that you can get. And they kind of mimic oil. They're not quite as thick, but they are thicker than a regular acrylic. So there are things like that available. But anyway, here I've gone and filled in some more of the bandana and the little vest. She's wearing a little vest over her white shirt, so I've put that on, and then I've painted the features on the little pumpkin boy, and I've painted her hat in, and then those are little like fake roses decorations that I've put on top of her hat. It's a cowboy hat, and so I've used orange and black for the decorations on her hat, and they were actually hair bands that came with her original outfit, and I just put them around the crown of the cowboy hat because I thought that they would be really pretty and cute to go ahead and decorate the cowboy hat with. So here I'm working on, she has some little chaps that are supposed to be like over some jeans, and so these chaps have a cow spot pattern on them. So they've got the cow spot pattern and little fringe on the side, and that was also part of the costume that I bought for her at Babeside. And here I'm saving, and also save a stage, each stage. When you get through each stage, do an export and save a JPEG file for each stage, and you'll see why at the end of this video that was very important that I did that. But definitely do that, because your files can get corrupted, the program can crash and you lose your work. So definitely save different stages of each of your picture. And you can save it as a JPEG, or if you want something that's not as lossless as a JPEG file, you can save them as PNG files. They're bigger, but you can save them. But at least save them as a JPEG file. So here I'm working a little bit more on the background. I do want the leaves around her just to kind of make a border for the picture, and leaves at the bottom as well, like they've fallen on the old porch. And I've went ahead and add some of her skin tones, and we want to keep these kind of pale. If she's like being dressed up as a vampire, then I will keep them kind of pale looking. And so anyway, I'm just kind of working on trying to make the leaves, the leaf border around her. And so you can use cadmium yellow light, or cadmium orange, some yellow ochre, all those colors, some burnt umber, throw in some burnt umber with it to give that look of autumn leaves around her. And I'm just making kind of rough strokes. And you can take your number 3 round if you're doing this traditionally, and just make some rough strokes in the leaf shapes, because these are going to be leaves that are growing out of the tree and about to fall off, and you don't want them to look uniform. You want sort of all kinds of jagged looks for the leaves, jagged edges, and different sizes. Some of these are probably big oak leaves, maybe maple leaves. I'm not sure exactly what the trees are, but they look kind of like maple leaves. So anyway, you want jagged edges though to kind of just give the impression that there's a whole bunch of jumbled leaves turned every different way and that they're all about to fall. And then I've got some at her feet on the porch, like there was a whole bunch of leaves that have blown onto the porch, and it just serves as kind of a border for the picture and makes her be the doll be the focal point of the picture. This is like a portrait, so you want the doll to be the main focus of the painting, and just the leaves and things like that will be eye stoppers, and that means it keeps the eye from wandering off the canvas and focuses in on the main point, the doll. So I'm just kind of working on that, and then I wanted to go ahead and add the details on the little pumpkins that are on her boots, and I'm using a dark color. You can use pure black if you want to, but put in a different color with it. Put in a brown or a blue if you're following along traditionally, because you just kind of want it to not look so flat. You want some depth to it. And if you're doing this in Infinite Painter, you can set the thing on black, or you can set it the color picker on a very dark color, but it doesn't have to be totally black. And then again here I'm saving. You've got to save. Make sure that you save every step of the way. Here I'm working again on the hat for the pumpkin boy, and I'm just trying to get a different color from her hair so that his hat will stand out from her hair, because her hair is kind of a brownish, and it's got maybe yellow ochre highlights and almost pinkish, but it's supposed to be a brown color. And so I've added a little bit of orange to his hat too, just to give it some depth and not look so flat, and like that there's light reflecting kind of off of his body, which would be orange because he's all orange. And then I'm working on the hat band a little bit and trying to get the shape right of the hat. I just want to try to get the highlights on the brim and the top, the crown of the hat, and just try to get the shape correct on the crown of the hat. And you do that by adding darks and lights, and adding where the light will hit on your hat. And I'm using the filbert brush again for the just to get the main details, and this is sort of the underpainting. And the underpainting is your first layer of paint, and then after that you add highlights and darks to give the shape and the form, and to make everything look three-dimensional. So I wanted to go ahead and try to get the features on his face right, the little pumpkin boy, and try to get a little bit of a highlight on the edge on the left side there, and try to get some of the highlight on the chin, and also to show that his head is separate from his body. Look, I mean, it's not separate in that it's not sewed together, but it's he's got a body and a head there, and need to show the separation. And so I'm working a little bit on the chin strap for the hat, and I kind of just left that there to make it kind of look like a bolo tie design too. I wanted it to look that way and just kind of give it more of a Western flair. And then I'm kind of working on the seams of the pumpkin doll and using a little bit of a darker orange color for that. And you can take cadmium orange and put in some burnt sienna or burnt umber to try to get a little bit of a darker color for the seams of the pumpkin doll, and also under his arms, just trying to give a little bit of some shadow for that under his arms and around his belly and his legs, and just kind of get a more of a three-dimensional look to him. So the highlight, I'm using some cadmium orange and throwing in some, I would throw in some cadmium yellow light to do that, to give the highlight when I'm using acrylics. And here you would just kind of use the color picker to get a lighter, more yellowish orange to give the highlight for the pumpkin boy. And if you want it to look a little bit redder, you can move the color picker towards the more orangish red, which I decided to add later on. But right now I started with kind of a yellow orangish color. And then here I'm just working on the soles of his feet are black, so I added that there. And then I hit a bug. This is a bug that sometimes we hit in Infinite Painter, and so you just need to hit the undo button and it'll come back. Your painting will. Save, and then exit out of the program and close it completely. And then you can open it back up and it should be okay. But make sure that when that layer vanishes like that, hit the undo button and it will come back. And then you hit save and then exit out of the program. That's one of the things that happens when you're a beta tester. So, and I'm a beta tester for Infinite Painter. But anyway, so that's the end of part 2 of my Halloween doll series. And in part 3, we're going to keep on working on the doll and adding more details. So if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And I will catch you later.